do you feed your pets before you feed yourself? Which I never would have done before. And then we talked, and then I said, think. Do you feed your pets before you feed yourself? And then they answered, and these are second graders. And I said, well, what do you think is the right thing? That was the next level of question. And then they talked about that for a little bit. And I said, well, what do you think the Torah tells you to do? We talked about that for a little bit. And then I read the story about God choosing Moses to lead his flock based on the fact that Moses was kind to a lamb. A lamb or goat.
It was a lamb.
I forget. All right. So, and then I said, why do you think God picked Moses based on the story to care for his sheep? And then I said, what's the Hebrew? I've been reinforcing the Hebrew term sfar, ba'alei chayim, which is compassionate treatment of animals. So I said, what is the Hebrew for showing good treatment to animals? Does the Torah teach us to treat animals well? Yes or no? Do you believe it's important to treat animals well? Yes or no? What do you do to treat animals well? And what may you tell others to help treat animals better? I never would have done that before. And those were questions because of the program that you can only hope that they come out of your class with a little bit of a different understanding than you would have before, which would have been, who is Moses? What did Moses do? More like a reading comprehension thing. So that's the difference. I hope I'm clear.
I think it was. Wow. It's a good example.
Very good.
Jim?
Okay. In first grade, what I'm trying to do is it's everything Stephanie said, but I'll add another layer. It's not just applying things at home, it's applying things to their little world outside. We were learning the story of Joseph in Egypt and when his brothers came. There were a million things that can come out of that, like forgiveness. How many people think that he should have forgiven his brothers or accepted his brothers? Or what would you do? We placed ourselves in that situation. But last week's homework was very interesting because it said Joseph was just one person. He made a great deal of difference in the world. What's one thing that you can do to make a difference in the world? And they came back with plant a tree, ride my bicycle, instead of going in the car, let me think, oh gosh, I mean, some of them really came up with good ones. Recycling was a big theme, I think because we'd just gotten finished with Tu B'Shvat. But they really were able to apply what they had learned to their living, and I think that's fostering the belonging. We also, in J-Life, they're learning about Shabbat, and I was sharing with Lori the story about a little girl in my class who came and said, my dad's just not buying it. And I said, well, you keep trying. Maybe when he comes again. And she said, okay, I got him to bring a challah every week. And I thought that was great. And then the next step was, she said last week she and her sister had a fight because they decided they were going to say the prayers and they couldn't agree on who was going to do which prayer. And last night, Dad put the prayers up on the internet so everybody could do it together.
Wow.
So I think we're getting someplace with this approach. I really do.
He's buying it.
Who's next?
Oh. Sorry, I was like listening to. Okay. So kind of on the other end of the spectrum, because you deal with the younger kids, I have the 6th grade, and because I teach Hebrew and Judaic studies, and my curriculum for Judaic studies is closely matched with my other teachers. I decided that I was going to apply Lomed to Hebrew because at the 6th grade level, like they come in and all they want to do is learn the prayers that they need to know for their bar bat mitzvah. And which is sort of the attitude of the parent too, that's great. They're learning about, Jews moving westward, but are they going to be ready for their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah? So what I decided to do was basically just figure out, did they even know what they were saying when they were praying? And I think that's something that we all, like even myself growing up, I would say the words, but did I really know what they meant? So for every prayer in the service, including the Torah blessings and the Haftarah blessings, and the Kaddish, which is something that I had never done before because it was it's a touchy subject, and every time we do it, we read several versions of an English translation, one that's very literal, another one that's more spiritual, and basically we read over it, we look at them, and we basically talk as a group, what does it mean when you're saying this? What do these words mean, not literally, but what is the gist of the blessing? And we can spend, some of the kids, for instance, we just did the Avot because it ties in with J-Life and our forefathers and our foremothers, and so we were talking about heritage, we were talking about where we come from. So we had a really, really great discussion for about 45 minutes, about why it's important to know who we are as Jews, how that helps us understand our identity as children, but as Jews, and where do we think that's going to lead us to in the future. So then what they do is they rewrite the blessing in Hebrew so that it strengthens their Hebrew skills, and then they rewrite the blessing in their own words. They can use family members' names, they can use any words that they wish, and they rewrite it, and I laminate them, and I put it into their ivory, which looks like, an iPhone, essentially, on the front, and they each have their own. So the whole overarching curriculum is that they have their own Siddurim that are personal to them, that they take down to services with them, so that when they do a prayer, they're reading their own version and they understand what they're saying. So not only do they know the Hebrew, but they know the English in their own words. So when it's time to come with when it comes time for silent prayer, they have an entire book of something that they've come up with, so that the meaning of the prayer there's more carry through, there's more understanding, and they seem to really like every time. The reason I don't have them here now to show anyone is because they want to bring them to services tonight, so I let them have them. Did that make sense? Okay. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Okay. I teach 7th and 8th grade, and I feel like a lot of the time for these two grade levels, it's a weird time for the kids because for 7th graders, they're all having their bar and bat mitzvahs, and they're kind of living that experience, even though sometimes their appreciation of it or whatever it is isn't where we would like it to be. It's about the party, or it's about being done with Hebrew school. So I think that looking at the curriculum and trying to get them to really feel this sense of belonging and this desire to be connected to their religion, their Jewish identity, this, the CJL, that it kind of comes together. And then 8th grade, I have the kids who, for whatever reason, whether it be because their parents are still making them go, or for most of them, they've chosen to continue because we've done something right from kindergarten through. So it's a really interesting time to kind of catch them. And I think what we've been doing is kind of looking at our lesson plans. And I think the connection with the kids is really important, but I think for me, it was more the guide of how to help me build this deeper thinking for myself and for the kids. So we've been trying to create a new curriculum for the 8th and 9th graders. We were doing Gesher Kesher, which is Bridge to Connection, and a lot of the plans are kind of like that, bringing the social stuff to our Jewish values, and how do we connect our values to what we're doing in our real everyday lives. And so we've kind of been doing that for forever, but it's been dated and kind of old, and so we've been making new lessons. And I did a lesson on consumerism, and I used the PLP, the lesson plan for that.
Powerful lesson.
Yeah, that's right. The powerful lesson plan format to kind of help me build this lesson, where I did embed all of these different beliefs, knowing what the value was, knowing where this value was in the Jewish texts, multiple Jewish texts, and then kind of bringing it to our regular day lives and seeing, you know, what is consumerism, why is it an issue, what does the temple say, what do you say, what do you think, and what is our responsibility for as consumers? Like, do we have a responsibility to know where our things come from, or to make responsible choices about how many things we buy? And then ideally they were supposed to make New Year's resolutions on, like, a consumer resolution. Like, I would look at the label before I bought something so I knew what it was made of or where it came, who made it, that kind of a thing. And then it was really, the lesson didn't go as well as I had hoped because of multiple reasons, but the following week I had a girl come in for J Girls, which is another program that we do on Monday nights, and she came in and she goes, you know, Jocelyn, I was at the store with my mom, and I was thinking about what you said about what our job is as consumers, and she's like, it's really hard to know where your things come from and what to do. And she was like really thinking about it. And so it was kind of like, you know, this stuff does carry with them. And if we are mindful about the way that we create our lessons, then we can reach more people that way. And I think what the Powerful Learning Plan does is it forces us to always kind of keep that in mind. What outcome do I want? And it might not be one specific, you know, generalized, okay, all the kids want to come out with this, but they come out with something. And I think that if you have a guide of where you want them to go, it helps you make sure your lesson kind of flows that way.
So fourth grade's different than everyone else because I got really lucky. We have a WOMED consultant and she's my co-teacher, which means her whole program is based on this type of teaching. And then I get to take what she's doing and figure out, well, how does that fit in with what I'm doing and another level of curriculum, but still looking at the 4 domains of teaching and still looking at this bottom-up or end-based teaching and getting to steer away from last year where we thought a lot of it was more assessment, and this year it really is more of that, what are they taking home at the end of the day? So we've looked at the entire book of Exodus, or we're looking at the entire book of Exodus, and it's great to see how this philosophy lets us pick and choose. And in our classroom, it's a lot more of the picking and the choosing and trying to still make it meaningful, which is helpful for people who've been doing this for a while because then you see it actually works. It's not reinventing the wheel, it's taking what you've done and tweaking it to make it better.
So thank you. So I hope that from listening to these stories,
I have a new job.
sorry.
I'll hold the video.
Yes. So somebody, sorry, was the cameraman.
This is another project we're working on too, so there will be filming in various places. I've been here forever. I was not a huge supporter. I feel like forever. I've been doing what I love for a long time, and I've seen a lot of growth in my students doing the LOMED, where they're including each other and really building a community within each other. That's not easy. It's the 4 domains really have gotten a little tricky for me because now I'm teaching it through values. And I did a lesson on Martin Luther King, and the value there is the value of speech. 6th graders talk a lot. They know they can use their voice. What my goal was for them to understand when it was appropriate and when it was meaningful to use your voice. And some of the kids got it, some of the kids didn't, and that's okay. Because at least they know it now and they're thinking when they're calling out or they're saying something that's not necessarily respectful to everybody, they're linking it to Martin Luther King, which they know all about, but yet we learned about it in Hebrew school. So they're connecting their everyday life to here, to what they're doing. And I think LOMED has really helped me do that, make more meaningful lesson plans. And when you look at the 4 domains, my hardest one was the knowing. Knowing the value of speech. What does that mean? So when you look at it, you go, oh, the knowing's really easy. It's like a test question. Sometimes it's not. So those are the pieces, and we've heard all the stories. And I get lots of film.